This week on the PowerPLAY Show, part 2 of my special co-production with Defining You with Helena J. We discuss the changing business of journalism and how I got started on my current film project, More Than Our Skin. Part 2 of Defining You with Helena J coming up next on the PowerPLAY Show.
From the studios at Hull-Bay Productions, this is Season 3 of the PowerPLAY Show. Now, here's Tonya McGrath.
What is your take on this new era where people just pick up a phone and start recording? What are some of the best practices that professionals like that you can share with people who just pick up their phone that they may be missing?
Well, we're in this state of kind of citizen journalism, that anybody who has a phone basically has a camera and a recording device, and they can, take pictures and just put anything up on, any social media platform. And I think that there is some very great good to that, right? Mm-hmm. If had not been for cell phones, things that we should know about, we wouldn't have been able to see. I think of George Floyd as the latest of these examples. Without that cell phone footage, we would have never seen him with an officer's knee on his neck and dying before that crowd of people. Mm-hmm. So there is some good to that. Where I think we fail is when we take our cell phones and we record something, we create our own idea of what this story is, we put it out there without any appreciation for facts and understanding and sensitivity. Some of the stuff that I see being put out there, I think is very dangerous and very irresponsible. People still do have the right to privacy. People still have the right to be who they are, even if they're in a public space. And if you're going to do that, I think it's incumbent upon you to just try and get a little bit more information, and not just make these assumptions about an individual. It really is kind of like it's a good thing. Because we get to see justice in action, we get to see injustice in action, right? But then we also have things that just really don't make a lot of sense and are very hurtful to people that are put out there. I think that if your true intent is to be a journalist, it means a lot more than just having a camera with a phone with a camera and an audio recording device. I think it's about really understanding what storytelling is and what fact-finding is, and being able to stand up for your story and being able to say that I stand by what I'm putting out there. I've done my due diligence. I understand what the consequences are, and I'm still going to make this step. But I don't think a lot of people are going to do that, nor do I think a lot of people are interested in being journalists. They're just interested in just getting the information out there, right? Right.
Who's going to get it out there first?
Who's going to get it out first, yeah.
You made a very good point earlier when you talked about people having privacy even if they're in a public space. And I really get it, because I know when you're producing television shows or even on the news and something very graphic is going to be shown, one of the things that the reporter or the person who's sharing that story would say, some of the information is very graphic, and if you have any kids, or you may not, you give the warning before, but then now you have people just post anything. It's like we become so desensitized to some of the things that we see. You see a dead body before you would see that on television, and it would be covered. And so I clearly understand what you're saying, but the industry has really shifted, and there's been a lot of change. We have social media influencers, you have YouTubers, you have people who have gotten so famous on some of the social media platform like TikTok and YouTube and Instagram. And so it's going to be hard to strike a balance, but I clearly understand if someone is wanting to get into this industry and they're listening to you, someone with 30 years experience in this industry, producing, editing, and directing. And, people have passions, and sometimes they don't take the first step because they don't know how to go about doing that. And someone who has the passion for sharing stories just like you, where should they start?
Wow, that's a great question. I think it's about really understanding what your voice is. And your voice can be that of a director. It can be that of an editor. It can be that of a producer. It can be that of a podcast host. And really kind of deciding how you want to use that voice to affect change. For me, I think that people go into this business for a lot of different reasons. One of the most common is fame. And if that's what your goal is, I wish you the best of luck, because it's going to be very hard to do that. Being a journalist, being a content creator like we are, I think it's more important that we do the good stories, that we use our platform to uplift and not to tear down. I think it's important that when we use our platform, that we're doing it for the greater good of either our communities or whatever our passions are. I think that there are spaces for that negativity where people just want to tear each other down, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, you have to go home and look at yourself in the mirror, and you have to determine whether or not what you did, what you tried to create, was it for good or was it for evil? And I truly believe in that. I think that, doing stuff like we're doing takes a lot of preparation. It takes a lot of work, as we talked about. It's not easy. It's not a, get famous overnight type of thing. And so you have to determine, okay, so why am I really doing this? And I think you and I are in the same space where we're doing it because we love what we do.
It's
and
the
we
love and the joy that you get out of doing something that people can resonate with people connect, you get the feedback, and you say, you know what, if I can get one person to be inspired and motivated by this, and to get them to get out of their way and do what they love, then I think I'm doing the right thing. Yes. And I think I'm in the right direction. So I clearly agree with you. And in this world, we have people from all walks of lives, and people have their motivations of why they want to do things. Being famous is good, but it has things that come with being famous. And if you're not ready to be famous, you can be destroyed very quickly. So for those who are thinking of wanting to get into an industry such like this industry, and your goal is to get famous, you probably want to rethink the approach and really think about, am I really getting into this industry for the right reasons? Because this is not easy. No. This is hard work. There's a lot of pre-production that goes into it. There's a lot of writing that goes into it. There's an angle that you're trying to get, and there are people that you are trying to target. And so going into the industry and not understanding what it takes to do this kind of work. And sometimes people get into this industry and they do not last because they never took into consideration what it means to do what they are doing and why they are doing it. So first of all, you have to know, why am I getting involved in this? And what is in it for me? And how can I affect the lives of the people that I am reaching? And you have to think about things before you get them done. So I'm really enjoying what you are doing. And I want to really say to you, don't stop what you're doing. I know it's hard work. Sometimes you are working on your own and there are so many different moving pieces and you have to get the work. And in the midst of all of that, things happen. So what is one thing you wished you had known before you began your career in the television industry?
Wow. One thing I wish I had known. I think I wish I had learned to trust myself and trust my instincts. Because, and I love what you just said about the preparation and everything. And trust is a big part of this industry as well. People have to trust that when they come to you, that you are going to allow them the opportunity to tell their stories. They're trusting their stories and their lives in your hand. And I wish I had those instincts, those trust instincts early on. I think I second guessed myself a lot. I think that there were a lot of things that I didn't know or believe in myself that other people believed in. And I think that kind of put me back a little bit. But I think that's what it is. And I'm going to ask you as well, what is it that you wish you knew many years ago before you started in this business?
Right. Like I said, before I moved to the United States, I had broadcasting experience. I worked on a radio station where I did really well. I didn't have any broadcasting background when I started, but I eventually got a hang of it, and I pushed the needle. I did things that was not normally done on radio before. Radio is a theater of the mind, so you have to really think of ways to become creative and make it interesting, and I know I had that. So when I came up here, this was like a totally different thing for me, because I'm coming into a new space. This is the United States of America. It's not one little small country. And so there's a lot of adjustments that I had to make. And coming here, and you speak English, but you speak English with what we term as an accent, because somebody can tell me I have an accent, and I can tell that person you also have an accent, because we don't speak the same thing. But the disadvantage for me is that when I graduated, I had many opportunities to work in the industry. I had interviews and things like that. And one of the stumbling blocks for me, I got an interview at one of the radio stations that I really wanted to work on. And I got it. I got the interview, and I spoke to the young woman who interviewed me at the radio station, and said how much she liked me. But I couldn't get the job. You know why I couldn't get the job? Because I had an accent. So back then, accents were frowned on. And I came from the Caribbean very confident and was sure of who I was. And now I'm in this space where someone is telling me that I have all the skills needed to do the job, but because I speak differently, that they didn't think I was going to work out for the radio station. And I can tell you that crushed me, derailed my self-confidence. I was questioning myself, questioning the way that I speak. Even if I think I speak English very well. If you can understand me, yes, I have an accent. So what? And so one of the things that affected me is that I didn't feel like there was a chance for me to make it in this industry. I had a lot of drive, but when you go to a radio station and you hear somebody telling you, I think you're great, the only thing is we probably can't use you because you do not speak like us. And so that really changed things up for me. And authenticity, I didn't understand back then, but I do now. And I had a lot of fear and said, you know what? I'm not going to be accepted in this industry. So I better position myself and go back to school and secure myself. So in case this doesn't work out, then I have something that I could fall back on. So the fact that I was forced to go in a different direction because the opportunities that I thought were readily available were just, they just disappeared and were taken away from me. So I didn't have that confidence that I had before. I didn't do things that I thought. I got shy. I think I got I closed up and got shy and didn't think I was good at this. And but I went on and I worked in different fields. I work in the corporate world doing many different things, and I was good at that. But that was not what I was called to do.
Yeah.
And so there were many times when I made attempts to get back, and I had people who also knew what I did, and I was always vocal, and I always had a point to make about something, and I would always had a voice. And I had friends who would say, why don't you get back into doing what you were doing before? My mom also said, wouldn't you want to be on TV, being a reporter, telling stories? And I'm like, no, and I look at my mom, I said, would you like to see me on television? Telling me these things. And I'm like, but I didn't think I was good enough because of what I was told. And so I had a lot of years to think. But you know what? That thing that I did before was always, and I mean, I did radio, I did some television, but it wasn't at the level that I wanted to do, because I wanted to be involved. I wanted to produce, I wanted to create, I wanted to write. And so, and as a Black person also, having an accent, the opportunities do not always readily come to you, because people judge by the time you open your mouth. Even if you speak very well, you get judged for being a Black woman. The standard that they set for you is twice as harder for people like me. And so I didn't feel like I had it, but I know something was inside of me that was not being fulfilled. And although I was doing all these great things in these other areas, in this other industry, that one thing that was inside of me always spoke loudly to me, always. And anytime I have a microphone, you can just, the joy that comes out of that. I am doing, and then 2 years ago I tried, and I had such trepidations. I would not be able to move to do the things. Although I know what to do, I was not able to move and to move myself to do the things that I wanted to do, because I was so scared. I'm like, people may not like this. I have an accent, and that those things and those words that were spoken before kept coming back to my mind. And you know what I said? I saw my friend, my first college friend. I saw Romina, who I also did an interview with, and I saw some of her stuff on my timeline on Facebook, and the branding just spoke to me. And so, I called and we spoke, and then I said, I wanted her to connect me with the person she was working with, because I said, this is what I need to do. This is what I need to push I need to get back. I need to really seriously look at what I want to do and how I can get back into it. And so I worked with a coach. I'm still working with her to get this podcast going, because I have things about wanting things to be perfect before I move forward. I have this thing where I want everything to be right before, and I have the fear of it's not good enough, because we are the worst critics of our own selves. And so by working with a coach, I was able to overcome some of those things. Not completely. I still have fear, and sometimes I still have that shyness in me, but I know I have the fire in me, and I can feel the joy. I started working with someone about 6 months ago, and then I launched my Defining You with Helena J in February, and I've had a number of really good interviews, and the feedback has been really great. And I can tell you, since I started doing this podcast, there is this joy, unexplainable joy that I feel, because I know, and just like you were talking about your faith, we have that in common. And last week I was praying, because when I started the podcast, I had a lot of episodes in the bank. And then for some reason or the other, I just got stuck and could not bring myself to do more episodes. I'm like, what is going on? I know what to do. I've done this before. What is going on with me? And so there's this thing about, because the response was so overwhelming, people were responding, and the podcast, the downloads were really huge. And in a short space of time, you have 500 podcast downloads for somebody that just started. And I got scared, I'm like, can I replicate that? Can I continue to do that? And so, but I am, somebody said to me, I had actually had an interview with Randy Thomas, who is a 10-time live announcer for the Academy Awards. She does all the voiceover for ABC, ABC News, Nightline, the Emmys, the Tonys, the Kennedy Honors. And I just, you know what I did about 2 years ago? I posted something online with my old radio picture from back home as a broadcaster in the studio. And I wrote, you know, one thing that my dream one day is to become like Randy Thomas. And we are friends on Facebook, not really friends, but we were friends on Facebook. And I tagged her in the post, and you would not believe, she inboxed me. You don't know what
that's awesome.
This is someone that I followed all throughout my college years, and I mimicked her. I copied everything she did, and I still have tapes of those things. And for that person to reach out to me, that was huge. I was elated. I was so excited. I called my nieces. I was telling them all about it. I was so excited. And then she reached out to me and said, I can help you. And then we set up a Zoom. And after that, she invited me, because she's also a voiceover coach, which is something that I also am into as well. And she invited me to one of her sessions with some of the people who are also professionals in the field. And I could not believe it. And since that time, she's been so supportive, so encouraging, and tells me that I have a beautiful accent. Even when I did a read, which I wasn't supposed to do, she was saying to the coach, don't you just love her accent? And I'm like, if I had heard this years ago, probably that would have helped me to build back the kind of confidence that I needed for me to follow my passion and follow my path. But you know what? I am back here and I'm doing this, and I know this is what I am meant to do. And so I'm hoping that somebody who's listening, who wants to do something that they love, but they're afraid that people may not like them, people may not like it, people may criticize them. But if you have a passion and you have the skill, I would just say, you know, take a chance on you. You have to start so you can see where you can go. And you never know, by just starting yourself, what you might do for someone else. So that's me. And
I think that's a perfect way. I think it's a perfect way to end this conversation, because I think that you're right. And, you know, if you love what you do, no matter what it is, it's going to take hard work. It's going to take hard work. And if it means something to you and you have the passion for it, you have to keep going. I think that was a beautiful way to just say that. And I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah, most definitely. So tell me, let's talk a little bit about your podcast, the PowerPLAY Show. What is the goal of your podcast?
So I like to interview people who have compelling stories that talk about how they've used power, whether they're in positions of power or where they're seeking power, just to kind of talk about their journey. This last series that I did for the month of March, Empowering Women, featured the 5 women from my upcoming documentary film, More Than Our Skin. And it really just gave you just a little snippet of their story, but really how they've used living with vitiligo as a way to empower other people living with vitiligo. So I love interviewing people. I love learning more about people and their journey, just kind of the same way that you do with Defining You, because I think it's important that we do hear these stories. And I think, you know, we're giving opportunities for people to listen to others who may have that same path. Or for a listener to say, oh, I've been stuck at this particular place. But then by listening to other people's stories, they know how to kind of get unstuck and get to where their goals are and what they really want to do in life. So that's really what I try and do on the PowerPLAY Show.
Great. So let's talk a little more about your film, more than our skin. And you talk about vitiligo. Some people may not know exactly what that is. So can you give us a little insight about that, the film and the people that are in the film?
Sure. Yes. So More Than Our Skin is the story of 5 women living with the autoimmune disease vitiligo. Vitiligo is, as I said, an autoimmune disease that attacks the pigmentation in people's skins, technically the melanocytes that give us our color. And what that means is it will create spots that are depigmented spots on their body. Sometimes it covers their entire body. Sometimes people have it in certain areas. There's really no kind of rhyme or reason how it presents itself. And you can, one of the women in the film was diagnosed at 3 months. Another person was diagnosed maybe 10 years ago. So it can present itself at any time. Doctors really don't understand how it presents itself. There's no cure for it. And there's very little advocacy and awareness of vitiligo. Oftentimes, we will see somebody who looks with vitiligo with the spots all over them, and we think, oh, I don't want to touch that person. It's not contagious. There's no case where somebody has touched someone's hand with vitiligo and then they themselves then develop. So this film really is about telling these women's stories, but also creating awareness, creating advocacy, giving information so that people can walk away understanding what it means to live with this disease, and really to check our humanity as it comes to treating one another. It's I knew very little about it when I started this film over a year ago. And now I feel like I'm an honorary member of the vitiligo community. And an advocate, and I truly believe in that. So this film is very important to me, and I just will tell your audience you can go to morethanourskin.org and learn more information about it, about these 5 incredible women, a little bit more of their stories. And we have trailers, of course, a film trailer, and also other individual trailers of the women that you can take a look at. We are hoping to complete this in the next few months, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Wonderful. So what got you into doing this film? Why was this so important for you to do?
Well, like I said, I had really prayed about doing another film, and I met Valerie, one of the women from my church, many years ago. Actually, when I was producing my first film, I met her, and I was always very, very intrigued with her, with just her personality. I thought she was absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. I had never seen something like this. I think that, we can all remember Michael Jackson and how his pigmentation changed. And we all had very different kind of ideas of what that was about, right? We talked about him bleaching his skin. He wanted to be white, and he suffered from a very a serious case of vitiligo, and with his resources he was able to depigment his entire skin, which is also an incredible process in itself. But most people don't have Michael Jackson's money, right? So they have to kind of live with how their skin is presenting itself with vitiligo. So I contacted Valerie, and I said, I'd really like to talk to you about doing a project with you about what it means to live with vitiligo. And wow, that's how it was all born.
Wonderful. That's very interesting. I can't wait to see it. So it's interesting that you brought up Michael Jackson, because like you said, sometimes we have to be, when you're putting out information about people you don't know anything about, you really have to make sure you have your information correct. And I think a lot of misinformation that was spread about Michael Jackson and him trying to be white, and people not having all the information. And sometimes, sometimes things are personal and private to people, and they don't necessarily want to get into it or want to talk about it. So it's very important for when we do things like a podcast, or you do produce a film, for you to have facts and for you to have the right information to share people's stories, and also to educate the public as well. Look at what just happened recently at the Academy Awards with Jada and the alopecia, and people, people are still talking about it. Nobody's talking about what the effect was for Jada, and although Chris didn't actually mention that, but someone who's going through a situation like that, you never know what people are going through, right, and how they are processing it, and we really have to be sensitive about how we address things that we do not know. You don't have someone's personal experience, and I think we have to have more empathy and just
humanity.
Some other things, yes, have grace, and let people try to understand before you give in your 2 cents or your 5 cents about someone's personal life, because it's only that person who's experiencing that knows what it feels like to go through that process. Nobody knows how long it took her to actually just came out and own it. So it's very important for us to be responsible when we say things about people that we do not really know. We may see them on television and they may be in movies and we may like them or not like them, but that is not an opportunity for us to talk about people and what they're going through. So before we go, I also, you are the principal of Hull Bay Productions, and if someone wanted to reach out to you and work with you on a project or have a film idea that they want to share with you, how can listeners connect with you online?
Sure. So it's very easy. You can go to our website, hullbayproductions.com. And there you'll have my contact information, or you can just contact me directly at Tonia, Tonia, at hullbayproductions.com.
What would you say is the most rewarding thing for you owning your own company and becoming your own boss?
Well, what's rewarding is I'm doing the work that I know that God is intending me to do. That's the most rewarding thing. It's a lot of work when you work for yourself, when you are your own kind of gatekeeper. It's a lot of hard work. You have to be responsible with your time, with your resources, with other people's resources. It's a lot of work, but I'm doing exactly what I know God is intending me to do. I know that He's opening up opportunities for me. I am full of grace and humility when it comes to what He has already done in my life. Absolutely. And I have a tremendous husband/partner who is allowing me to sit here and create all day, which is just absolutely fabulous.
That's a plus. I love that. So earlier I mentioned about your Emmys. Can you tell us some of the awards that you've gotten over the years? I know you've gotten Emmy awards. You have the Communicator Awards. You've also gotten the Webby Awards. Can you just briefly talk about those and what you got the awards for? Sure.
Yeah. So my first Emmy was for the movie, the documentary that I mentioned to you before, Silent Screams: The Plight of Love, Abuse, and Being Black, which was with Mika Scott Pearson, one of the women from Framingham 8. My second Emmy Award was a documentary I did on the New People, which was about the Haitian migration to the city of Somerville, Massachusetts, and some of the difficulties that were happening with the changing face of that community. And then my third Emmy is for a children and youth special that I did in our own words. And that was just talking to youth about just the challenges of what it means to be a young person. And I have 5 Communicator Awards for the podcast for different episodes that I did on the podcast. And then the Webby honoree for, what was that? Oh, I did a series on suicide awareness. So, it's a lot of hard work, but it's worth it, and getting these kind of acknowledgments really just makes me know that I'm really trying to do the right thing.
Making an impact and affecting people in a positive way. Well, Tonia, I know there's a lot more to come from you. And I just want to say thank you so much for this opportunity and that we could have this conversation. And I'm looking forward to your film coming out, and all the best to you and Hull Bay Productions along with your husband. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. And we're going to do this again because I think we have so many other things to talk about. But yes,
right.
So
we just have to frame it.
Yes.
All right. This was really nice.
Yes.
We have a lot to unpack that we can't unpack all of that in 1 hour. So I want to thank you so much, and I wish you all the success.
Thank you so much. And same to you. Boy, that seemed like a million years ago. Stay tuned next week for part 2 of our special co-production, Defining You with Helena J. Remember, you can listen to past episodes of the PowerPLAY Show wherever you subscribe to podcasts, including iTunes, iHeartRadio, Pandora Podcasts, and Amazon Music. You can also watch us on YouTube. Simply search the Hull Bay Productions Media channel and be sure to subscribe so you always know when we're live. And we air each Saturday at 5 p.m. on BroncoiRadio.com. So tune into a new episode of the PowerPLAY Show each Thursday wherever you subscribe to podcasts or on our YouTube channel, or simply visit thepowerplayshow.com. Until next time, I'm your host, Tonya McGrath, and thank you for tuning in.